I have never said this out loud before, not to my friends, not to my family, not even to myself in a clear way. I am still a virgin. For a long time, I thought this sentence was a problem. Not because of what it really means, but because of what people think it means. In my head, it sounded like a label, a mark, something that explained everything that was wrong with me. I didn't wake up one day and decide to feel ashamed. It happened slowly, very slowly, like water filling a glass drop by drop. No one noticed when it started, not even me. I remember the first time I felt different. I was sitting with friends, listening more than talking. They were laughing, telling stories about relationships, about nights, about experiences they said were normal. I smiled when they smiled. I nodded when they nodded. But inside, I felt like I was standing behind a glass wall. I could see them, hear them, but I was not really there. No one asked me directly, and I was thankful for that. But silence can ask questions, too. Silence can be loud. At night, when I was alone, I started thinking, not in a dramatic way, just simple thoughts that came and stayed. Why am I different? Did I miss something? Is there something wrong with me? I tried to answer these questions, but every answer felt incomplete. I didn't grow up with clear lessons about this topic. It was always half-spoken, half-hidden. Some people talked like it was the most important thing in the world. Others talked like it was something dirty. I stood in the middle, confused, trying to understand where I belonged. Sometimes I told myself it was my choice. Sometimes I believed that. Other times I wasn't so sure. I watched how people around me moved through life, how easily they talked about love, touch, closeness. I didn't feel angry at them. I didn't feel jealous all the time. Mostly, I felt tired. Tired of thinking about something that I didn't even fully want, but felt forced to explain. The strange thing is I never felt empty. My life had other things: work, thoughts, music, long walks, silence. I could feel deep emotions. I could care, I could connect. But somehow, one part of my life felt paused, like a page I hadn't turned yet. People like simple stories. He is shy. She is scared. They are late. But life is not simple like that. Some days, I felt strong. I told myself there is no race. Everyone moves at their own speed. I believed it, at least for a few hours. On those days, I felt calm. I felt normal. Other days were harder. I remember one evening very clearly. I was walking alone, watching couples pass by. They were not doing anything special, just holding hands, talking, being close. Something small, but that small thing felt very far away from me. I stopped walking and stood there for a moment. I didn't feel sad in a dramatic way. I just felt quiet, heavy, like I was carrying a question I couldn't put down. That night, I asked myself something honestly for the first time. Do I really want this? Or do I just want to stop feeling different? The answer scared me because I didn't know it. I thought about fear, not fear of people, but fear of expectations, fear of doing something just to fit in, fear of doing something and feeling nothing, fear of doing nothing and feeling left behind. There is a strange pressure in being normal, People don't always say it, but you feel it. In jokes, in looks, in stories that start with everyone does this, but not everyone does, and not everyone feels ready at the same time. I started to notice how often people talk without listening, how often they decide what is right for others. When you are quiet about something personal, others fill the silence with their own ideas. I didn't correct them. I didn't explain myself. Part of me didn't want to lie. Another part didn't want to talk. So I stayed quiet. Being quiet can feel safe, but it can also feel lonely. I am not writing this story to ask for understanding. I am writing it because it is true, because this is a part of my life that exists, whether I talk about it or not. I am still learning how to look at myself without judgment. Some days I succeed, some days I don't. What I know now is this: being a virgin is not the story of my life, but hiding it made it feel bigger than it really is. I don't know what the next page looks like. I don't know when things will change or if they will change in the way people expect. But I am slowly learning something important. After I stopped fighting with myself, the world didn't suddenly become kind. People didn't change. Conversations didn't disappear. Expectations were still there, moving quietly through rooms, sitting between words, hiding inside jokes. I just noticed them more clearly. Before, when someone said something uncomfortable, I felt it in my body first: a tight chest, a fast heart, a need to escape. I smiled and changed the subject, pretending it didn't matter. Later, when I was alone, the words came back stronger. Now it was different. The words still came, but they didn't own me. One afternoon, I was sitting with a small group of people, nothing serious, just talking about life, work, plans. Then, as it often happens, the conversation slowly turned to relationships. Someone laughed and said something like, "Everyone our age has lived enough stories by now." There it was, that familiar sentence. I felt the old reaction, trying to rise, the urge to disappear. But this time, I stayed. I didn't speak right away. I just listened. I noticed that no one was looking at me directly. The sentence wasn't an attack. It was just a sentence. Heavy, yes, but not personal. I realized something important in that moment. Not every comment needs a response. Not every expectation deserves space in my head. Still, there were moments when silence felt too heavy. The first time I decided to be honest, it wasn't planned, it wasn't brave or dramatic, it was quiet. I was walking with someone I trusted. We weren't close friends, but we weren't strangers either. The kind of person who listens without trying to fix you. We talked about small things at first: the weather, work, tiredness. Then the conversation slowed down, like it wanted to go somewhere deeper. They asked me a simple question: "Are you happy?" I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I stopped walking and thought for a second, not because I wanted to choose the right answer, but because I wanted to choose the honest one. "I'm trying to understand myself," I said. They nodded. No pressure, no follow-up question, just space. I don't know why, but that made it easier. So I said it, not in one big sentence, not as a confession, just as a fact. "I'm still a virgin," I said. And sometimes I don't know how I feel about it. I waited for a reaction, a look, a comment, something, but nothing dramatic happened. They didn't laugh. They didn't look surprised. They didn't try to explain my life to me. They just said, "Thank you for telling me." That was it. No advice, no judgment, no silence filled with tension. We kept walking. Later, I realized why that moment mattered so much. Not because I shared a secret, but because I stayed present while doing it. I didn't apologize. I didn't defend myself. I didn't turn my story into a problem. For the first time, I felt what it was like to be seen without being measured. After that day, something inside me softened. I didn't start telling everyone. I didn't suddenly become open about everything. That wasn't the point. The point was knowing that I could speak and still be okay. When people talked, I listened differently. I stopped hearing every sentence as a warning. I understood that most people speak from their own lives, not from a place of truth about mine. Some still made comments that felt sharp. Some questions were still uncomfortable. But now I had a choice. I could answer, or I could stay quiet, and both were valid. I noticed how calm feels when it doesn't come from hiding. Calm doesn't mean certainty. Calm means less noise. I still didn't have all the answers. I still didn't know when or how my life would change. But I stopped needing to explain the timing of my heart. One evening, alone in my room, I thought about everything again. The pressure, the silence, the comparison, the fear of being late, and I saw it more clearly now. The hardest part was never being a virgin. The hardest part was believing it defined me. When I removed the belief, the weight changed shape. It became lighter, manageable, human. I stopped waiting for a moment that would suddenly make me feel complete. I understood that completeness is not something you reach, it's something you allow. I allowed myself to move slowly. I allowed myself to not know. I allowed myself to be unfinished. That acceptance didn't close the story, it opened it. Now, when I think about the future, I don't see a deadline. I see possibilities, some close, some far, some still unclear, and that's okay. I am no longer standing behind a glass wall. I am inside my own life, even if some rooms are still empty. There is a strange moment that happens before things truly change. Not the moment when everything becomes clear, but the moment when you stop asking for permission to exist as you are. I didn't notice it at first. It came quietly, like most important things in my life. No sound, no sign. Just a small shift inside me. One day, I woke up and realized I was not waiting anymore. Not waiting to be different, not waiting to be approved, not waiting to catch up with someone else's timeline. I was just awake. The world looked the same. The room looked the same. My life looked unfinished, just like before. But I was standing inside it differently. For a long time, I thought my story would start after something happened. After a moment, an experience, a change. I believed that until then, I was only preparing, only waiting. Now I understand how dangerous that belief was. Waiting can feel safe, but it slowly steals your presence. You are alive, but not fully here. You move through days, but you don't touch them. I touched my days again. I started noticing how often I used to explain myself, even when no one asked. In my head, I was always ready with reasons. Reasons for being quiet, reasons for not moving faster, reasons for being where I was. I stopped doing that. Not because I suddenly felt confident, but because I felt tired of proving something that didn't need proof. One evening, I sat alone and thought about the word virgin. For years, it felt heavy, like a shadow following me, like a word that closed doors before I even reached them. That night, it felt smaller, not unimportant, just smaller. I saw it for what it really was. Not a definition, not a failure, just a fact about a part of my life that hadn't happened yet. And not yet is not the same as never. I understood then that people confuse timing with value. They believe if something happens later, it matters less. If someone moves slower, they are behind. But life is not a line, it is a space, and everyone moves inside it differently. I thought about all the times I felt pressure to hurry, to become someone else, to act from fear instead of truth. And I felt grateful that I didn't. Not proud, grateful, because acting from fear always costs more than waiting from honesty. I didn't suddenly want answers. I didn't suddenly want to change my life overnight. What I wanted was simpler. I wanted to stay present without judging myself. That became my quiet goal. Some days was still difficult. I won't lie about that. There were moments when old thoughts returned, when comparison tried to pull me back, when a comment or a look opened an old door inside my head. But now I knew how to close it again. I reminded myself of something simple. I am not late. I am not broken. I am not missing my life. I am living it. I stopped waiting for a version of myself that felt ready. I understood that readiness is not a feeling that arrives. It is something you build by staying honest. One night, before sleep, I asked myself a question that felt different from all the others. If nothing changes soon, can I still respect myself? The answer came easily, yes. That answer changed everything. This is not a story about sex. It is a story about patience, about identity, about learning not to run. And if you've been running from your own life, even quietly, maybe today is not the day you change everything. Maybe it's just the day you stop running, and that is enough.